With a market capitalization of over 14 trillion and a year-to-date return of over 111%. Now, the oil and gas index has performed exceedingly greatly in the Nigerian Stock Exchange from year to date. Now, there are many ways people have made money from this, and this trajectory of growth has been pushed by a lot of policies, a lot of happenings, and that is why we are discussing that today on Clockwise. Welcome to Clockwise. My name is Providence, and we'll be telling you 5 oil and gas stocks that have made millionaires year to date and will continue to make millionaires. And like I do it here, I'm with my stock market analyst and researcher. I told you often, and I say it again, he sleeps on the charts and he understands the fundamentals of these businesses. Now, with a resounding virtual round of applause, welcome, Mr. Kanye. Welcome to Clockwise.
Thank you very much for having me.
I could remember some days or some months ago, we sat on this same show around February when we heard the first Hulabaloo or the Strait of Hormuz. You made some projections. Before we go into our conversation today, let's first of all re-examine that projection. What is happening around the strait, and how does it affect, or how has it affected the oil and gas index till today?
Okay, so the operation was called Operation Epic Fury.
Yeah.
Intervention of.
You're calling Hulabaloo.
Okay, so meaning the US said Iran cannot have a military, a nuclear weapon, and so they decided to attack Iran because, I mean, they had given Iran a deadline and Iran did not follow through with the deadline. So they attacked, killed a bunch of their generals, their key leaders, Ayatollah Khamenei, and a few of them, very powerful people. And Iran responded by actually closing up, or literally, effectively closing up the. There's a choke point called the Strait of Hormuz, which handles traffic responsible for 20% of the oil supply around the world. That's about 21 million barrels per day. So they decided to, kind of take over that choke point and restrict movement. Okay. So now, I remember I said something. I said, if I gave a projection that if at the time, oil was still trading around $60 or thereabouts. And I said, if by March 31st, the strait is not opened, then you'll see oil prices above $110. And that happened. So, but I mean, to some extent, it was like a double-edged sword. Because for the oil and gas companies, especially the upstream companies, it was a field day. We are going to look at in the conversation today. You will see how that reflects.
No, is that event? Is it of benefit to investors?
Very serious benefit to investors in oil or upstream. You will see the numbers.
Okay. All right.
So those numbers show that a lot of these companies had very, very, very excellent margins because of the oil price. Oil price averaged for like Seplat, the likes of Seplat, oil price averaged at $94 per barrel for the reporting period of H1 2026.
Now, let's first of all, before we dive into this conversation, which will be 5 oil stocks. Now, let's look at those that have actually released their earnings report, their half-year earnings report. Yes. We've seen that of Aradel. We've seen that of Seplat. How can you judge their performance so far?
So, I would say it's impressive. But with some caveats.
Okay.
So if you look at, let me look at a few of them. Let me look at the 2 of them in a bit more detail. If you look at Seplat, revenue increased by 30%. I think it went up to $1.282 billion.
Okay.
If you look EBITDA is what we call earnings. What are your earnings before you remove interest, you remove taxes, you remove depreciation and amortization? That actually rose by 28% to 939 million. Okay. Profit before tax doubled to 575 million. But guess what? Net income increased by 498%, taking it to $164 million. And then operating cash flow, this is where I like the most, and I'm going to tell you why. It reached $986 million. just $14 million shy of $1 billion. And then the free cash flow, you ready? $526 million.
Yeah.
And that is like a 35% year-on-year growth. The reason this is a good result. And the reason is because the free cash flow, if you look at the free cash flow of over $500 million, free cash flow means that a company enjoying this kind of massive free cash flow can actually do more acquisitions. We've seen the insane impact that the ExxonMobil assets have brought to these numbers. Now, what that means is that I at the point I worked with ExxonMobil for a good part of my life, and then I understand a few things that really happened, and how strategic this decision was, the decision to actually go acquire Mobil assets. Now, what is very interesting is that if you look at the debt to EBITDA ratio, it has actually collapsed to 0.25. That's a very good number for an oil and gas company.
Yes.
Good. So because with a free cash flow like this, companies can do acquisition. Companies can pay down debt, reduce their leverage ratio, and the companies can maybe buy back shares if they choose to. But most importantly for you, because I know where you're the camp that you belong to, they can pay dividend, and they are projecting nearly a 50-cent dividend per year. So if you look at those numbers, you see production. Just to give you a glimpse of what the ExxonMobil assets has done to Seplat, production has gotten to 139,000 barrels barrels of equivalent oil per day. By the way, this is like 4% above what we had in 2025. Now, why this is very important is that it's not just Seplat is like literally an oil and gas company, nudging even higher to the gas side. And you have seen, because some people have said, okay, this has been, and it's true, it's been driven, the earnings, these very positive margins have been driven by crude oil price. But again, look at this company that is nudging towards 52% production in terms of gas. The price of gas has not come down. You know why? Because Nigeria is exploring more ways of using gas. People have almost completely moved away from firewood and kerosene to gas. So what does this mean? This means that you have the likes of cooking gas, LNG.
By nature, we're having gas.
We have CNG. CNG plants are all over the place. Yeah. These are all domestic demand for gas. So a company like Seplat that is well positioned in the gas ecosystem, that is an insane insane prospect for them. So if you look at what they have, been able to get, I think for me this is a very good number. And then if you look at the debt profile, because again, I remember when the other time we talked about Owando. Yeah. And I had identified something, negative balance sheet, because of the debt profile. But this one, actually, the debt profile fell from $673 million to $371 million, which is, as far as I'm concerned, which now brought the net debt to EBITDA to 0.25. What does that mean? That means that the company is not going to spend so much financing debt, and the company, most importantly, will have, when companies have retained earnings, it allows them to acquire more assets. Because the more assets you acquire, if management execution is top-notch, then that means you can convert these assets to reasonable cash. So Seplat for me was a very good position.
Now, let's compare that to Aradel performance. Let's see the difference. Okay, so
Aradel was, I would say, also another, but you would see something that wasn't very comfortable for me. But Aradel, if you ask me, was a good name. Aradel reported a revenue growth. Remember, these guys have been doing very serious top line revenues. Top lines. So it moved by 576% from 368 billion naira to 2.491 trillion naira. That is huge.
Yes.
And if it's not huge, I don't know what is. Then you look at gross profit, 782%, pushing from 163 billion to 1.4 trillion. Also look at the operating profit, which is where I like a lot. The operating profit moved from 118 billion to 1.05 trillion. That's a 789.43% uptick. Then profit before, let me look at profit before tax, 293% increase from 191 to 752, sorry. Now, but the one that you like, because it's actually going to reflect in what will be given to you at the end of the time, is the profit after tax, which grew from 146 to 191 billion, a 30.5% increase. Okay. But there's something that was a bit challenging for me, and that is the total comprehensive income. There is something we call the net profit minus, there's something called other comprehensive income. Things like, let's say the company actually decided to service a particular equipment, they decided to maybe purchase an asset and all of that. So that actually, the total comprehensive income actually dropped by 80% from 144 billion to 28 billion. Earnings per share was not very impressive. I'm saying that because I know that people like you are only interested in the earnings per share because don't change your position at this point.
No, we are 60-40.
You are not 60-40. Every single time here you scream that it's the dividend for you. So that moved from just 6.34% from 33.26 to 35. I think what is most in this report, what is most interesting to me would be the share price increase from 520 to 1526, which is 193.62%. But again, if you look at even the balance sheet, the balance sheet was also a good story. If you look at the balance sheet, you look at I mean, you know, it's 6.6 in terms of trillion in terms of market value, but the equity was stood at 2.17 trillion. Then book value is where I was a bit concerned, because I know one of the questions you asked me is it a good buy?
Yeah.
The book value and the price to earnings ratio. I'm a value investor, as you know. So price to earnings ratio, book value, because the book value tells me what, how expensive the stock is. A stock is straight, the book value is 500. Actually, how do you get the book value? Just divide equity by the shares outstanding. Shares outstanding is 4.34 billion, and then the equity is 2.17 trillion. And then if you look at that, that gives you a book value of 500 naira. Okay. But it's trading at 1,526, meaning that it's actually like I think 3x book value. Okay. So if it's 3x book value, that means it doesn't look like something that is undervalued.
Is it not overpriced?
Yeah, well, it depends on how you look at it. It depends on who you ask. So for me, that's why I told you. That's why I told you. If you look at that and then look at the PE ratio of 21.58, okay, that means that for every 1 naira of earnings, Aradel earnings, you are paying 21.5 naira. So that's why I remember I told you even for some editions ago, I said, I am investing in Aradel not because I trust that the earnings, Aradel will grow its earnings to meet up to justify this price that is selling.
All right, now, before we actually go to the lists, the 5 lists of the 5 stocks we'll be talking about today. Now, if you are, let's say you have 2 investors, one is a value investor. The other one is, let's say, a dividend-driven investor, 60-40 in either ways. If you were to advise the both of them now, and they have both Aradel and Seplat, how will you advise them based on what you've seen, the report they've given today?
I would tell the value investor to, value investor means that you are really looking forward, long term. I would tell the value investor to go for Aradel. Okay. Aradel, to me, I believe is, it's trading at 3 times book value, but I think it is.
Bearing in mind that there will be a correction any moment from now.
Yeah, they may be. I think Aradel has been punished. Aradel has been punished already, because we have seen the price collapse from 2,100 and something to about 1,200. But my point is, I'm looking at this price to earnings ratio, and I'm looking at the book value. So I think that Aradel, because of the fundamental, I'm speaking fundamentally now, because of the fundamentals, Aradel has been one of the fastest growing when it comes to the earnings. Look at 576% in terms of the top line. So the top line, the gross profit, this have been very excellent. So I would tell a value investor to go for Aradel, understanding that there is a high, with proper management execution, there's a very high chance that they will grow into these earnings, this PE ratio, this value. They will grow into it. Seplat is currently, there's a transition process ongoing. I think Seplat has not been punished yet. Seplat is still up there. So you buying Seplat, I still expect, really, to be honest with you, I still expect the price of Seplat to come down, because the earnings, the PE ratio is higher than this. So from a value perspective, I think Aradel is more undervalued than Seplat.
All right.
But for a dividend guy, Seplat is the name to go to, because Seplat is looking at almost 50 cents. 50 cents at the current is about 700 naira. That's 700 naira in terms of in dividends. 700 naira in dividends means, for a stock that is trading at 11,000, that's a good dividend yield, if you ask me. That's a good dividend yield compared to Aradel. We don't even, Aradel is not there. It's somewhere. Right. It's even less than 30 naira.
All right. Now let's talk about the conversation for today.
Okay.
The 5 stocks that you think, you've actually done analysis of, and you feel that they have potential upsides before the year end, because since we've seen the report of two major sector, which is two major stock in that sector, which is Aradel and Seplat. Now let's talk about others that you think, okay, there's a potential upside from this number of stocks before the year end.
Okay, so here is my reasoning here. I don't want us to look at this in isolation, because there are certain things that are going to happen. So first, we know that there's still a strong domestic demand for gas. We know that the Strait of Hormuz is not open.
Yeah.
And by the way, some of those contracts that were entered into in the first half of the year would reflect the way oil purchase is done. It's not that you don't just go and pay and collect. No, there is what we call futures contracts, and most of these companies actually go into those contracts, meaning you can pay a certain price. For example, you could say, okay, price could be about 110, and I could say, listen, I want to buy oil at 95 naira or $95, and I make that commitment. That means even if the price of oil falls, I'm still committed. Yes. That's how these things work. But I don't want to go into so much detail, but I still believe that these companies will benefit from the fact that the oil has remained stubbornly high, still hovering around between $80 and $100 per barrel. That's what. So if you look at that, number one, if you look at the fact that we are expecting Dangote to list, and Dangote listing, though Dangote is playing in this the downstream sector, midstream and downstream sector, I still believe that Dangote is going to bring that enthusiasm. It's going to bring that investor interest. I mean, this is a company that's already done $2.5 billion in private placement. Right. Now, I mean, that's telling. Now, if the company succeeds to raise the $5 billion, that will be one of the largest raises on the continent. And what that does is that it brings investor interest into the market, specifically into that particular industry. Dangote is a modular refinery, meaning it will continue to do what? Expand. That's the meaning of being modular. Yeah. Currently, it's doing 650,000 barrels. It expands to, and the current total supply for Nigeria I think production is less than 2 million barrels. So you just need maybe a 3x expansion from here, and Dangote will literally take the entire supply from Nigeria. So these are all tailwinds for the oil and gas stock. And so for this, I mentioned some names. One of the names, of course, we have already talked about Seplat. If you ask me if I'm to put them in order, I would pick Seplat. Here's why I'm picking Seplat. Billion number one, because Seplat actually attains to you, a dividend guy, and attains to me, a value guy.
Okay.
Seplat,
so you can play the two.
So you can play the two. Seplat, I mean, I've just told you what the dividend yield could look like, which for me is going to be very, very, it's about 46. They're looking at 46 cents, which is not very close to 50 cents. And I did that number, let's say at 1,400, that's about 700 naira. Now, if that's about 700 naira in terms of for 11,000 naira of a stock. So I believe that this is going to be such this makes Seplat to play in those two camps. But beyond that, I want you to look at the fact that if Seplat is able to, is Dangote, we believe that, of course, they're not raising the 5 billion because they want to use and throw party. They are raising it because they want to use and expand their capacity. Yeah. And given its modular structure, it means it could take more. So what that means is that Seplat could literally, at the end of the day, sell just to just to Dangote. If that happens, by the way, Dangote is buying, even if Dangote buys in US dollars, which, it still makes sense. That means it allows them to remove all the logistic risk and all of the other cost components of pushing products outside. Seplat does not have to deal with that. Okay. And then they have what we call a reliable buyer. When you have a reliable buyer, what they are literally telling you is just try to expand your production. Currently at 139,000, the guidance given by the company is that they are going to move. Now I know that Seplat they are changing management too, but so that is the only uncertainty here. If management execution. That's introducing what we call execution risk. But if management could continue to execute, the way they have guided, so that we expect a lot to come to Seplat. So Seplat for me is a very good contender at number one position. Okay. The second, of course, is Aradel too, because I told you for a value guy,
they're the biggest guys.
They are the biggest. These are the two behemoths.
Before Dangote comes in.
No, they are not playing. They are in the. If you talk about the oil and gas industry, Dangote. Yes. But if you talk about upstream, Seplat is the more than half Aradel. So, but my point is, what enthusiasm, what foreign exposure? We say that the foreign players make over 15% of the Nigerian investors in the NGX, but that's because the NGX is still at stock at it's still less than $150 billion. Okay. In terms of valuation. When Dangote lists, we are looking at over 200 billion. Do you know what that means? It means that some investors, some institutional investors, some sovereign wealth funds, some from foreign pension fund managers, foreign portfolio investors will begin to, the market now becomes attractive to them. There's a threshold below which they cannot invest in the market. So that will, and when they come in, of course, guess what? They will go to the behemoth. Remember, Dangote might even be doing Dangote refinery and petrochemical might actually occupy as much as over 40% of the NGX by the time it lists. So what that means is that for you to be able to, if you are tracking the NGX, that means you must allocate over 40% of your portfolio to that name. And then that in itself will make the oil and gas industry to be like completely the behemoth. It would even take more popularity than even the finance industry. Okay. Because now, if you talk about the Nigerian NGX, everybody talks about financials. But by the time Dangote is, that table will turn to oil and gas.
All right. You talk about Aradel and Seplat. 1 and 2. So
yes. The next one I'm going to talk about would be strictly a value play for me, which is Owando. Now, Owando
with their current reports?
So here is the deal. I've always told you, guy. And by the way, this is the same way I was screaming about Facebook, and everybody said, no, it's not. And then we saw what happened. People like to jump in when the battery is already almost over. Owando, I know Owando is a high risk play for me. But there's something called the Sharpe ratio of a portfolio. When you are doing portfolio construction, you don't just stay purely safe. Scared money doesn't make any money. So Owando for me, they are sitting on a debt profile. Their balance sheet is minus over in the negative region of over 500 billion naira. Yes, but guess what? That is when sentiment is at its worst level. Okay. Now, and you remember they acquired a Nigerian oil company assets.
Yeah.
So
asset and liability.
So it got liability. So what does that tell you? It tells you that we don't know yet if management is able to use those assets and build their free cash flow. The cash flow could be used to do what? To pay off the debt. Because everybody's screaming Owando because of the debt. You see, even if you look at the charts, very, 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 very saddening. The sad situation on the charts. Because nobody wants to invest in a company that is sitting on such huge liability. Yeah. But for me, I think it's a name that you could add on your portfolio, because if Owando turns, if it's a positive turnaround story, Owando will explode. Of all the names I'm on this list today, Owando is the only one that I believe can give you, if it works out fine, can give you a 10x on your money. Now, so Owando is a name for me, but it's a name that maybe you could do maybe 5 to 10% exposure maximum.
Okay,
you know,
your risk management.
Yeah, in terms of risk management. So 5 to 10%. I could do 8%. That's a sweet spot for me for Owando. Okay, good. So the next one will be corn oil. Corn oil, we already know it sits in the retail space, and I mean, if you look at the fact that this is a name that would benefit a lot when what we expect to happen in the downstream sector comes into play. Investors coming in would look at other names apart from Dangote, because again, remember, these guys are professional investors. They don't want to. There's something called concentration risk. They don't want to deal with that. Even when they invest in Dangote, I mean, Dangote is a refinery. This corn oil is not a refinery, but they are still in the downstream sector. So corn oil is a marketing company. So that in itself would also attract, because I mean, like I told you, they like to invest across the entire value chain. So the upstream would be Seplat and Aradel, and maybe an Owando. Owando is now an oilstream player, an upstream player. Then you have the midstream and downstream will be Dangote and corn oil. And then the last name that I will mention, which is Total Energies Marketing. So Total Energies is also a name that I would consider. The only thing is that it's about liquidity issues. It's about the fact that
I want to ask you about
price seems to be stopped.
So why is it on your list?
No, it's on my list because, like I told you, it's a defensive for me. You know, it's a defensive for me because, again, like I told you, we're also speaking to newbies. So I don't want something that will be moving up and down and all that. But the only thing is that over the past several weeks, the price has been literally stuck to a particular level. So that's why I'm saying I'm going to mention Total and then join it with Etana PLC. Okay. Etana PLC is a turnaround story, really. I mean, you've seen what they have done, the acquisitions they have made, but we still want to see how that plays out. So, in fact, if you ask me, Etana is something that could be on your watch list because they don't have so much to tell for now, but I believe that the turnaround story, let's look, maybe give them for 1 or 2 years and see whether that happens. It's the same thing with even Owando. Owando acquired the assets, so we're still waiting. That's why I'm saying I'm not advising anybody to overly expose him or his or himself to, I even talk about drawdown. I'm not. You are saying if it goes wrong, but I'm saying give that exposure and let's wait and see. We need like maybe 1-2 years or some reports, maybe several quarters of reports. Let's see the performance, and then see that will tell us whether management is able to leverage the assets their asset base to really transform those companies.
Okay, now we've talked about 5. Okay, 6.
Yeah, the other ones, the bracket, total and eternal brackets.
If you have a billion naira, how will you actually allocate your resources?
A million naira, I would definitely do for the behemoth.
Okay.
For the behemoth, like I told you, you already know that I'm going to do maybe 10%, which is 100,000 for Owando. But I'll do 30. I will do 300,000 a piece for Seplat and Aradel. That's already 600,000. Owando will be 100,000.
Okay.
That's 700,000. Then because I might even do 35% actually to the behemoth.
Okay.
So 25%, 35%. That's already 70. 1 to 10%. Then I'll do for Connor. That's 1 to 10%. That's 80%. I have 20% left, and I have Etana. I'm sorry, I have Total and Connor. I'll do maybe
8%.
No, I'm not doing. I'll do like 12% for. I'll do 12% for even for corn oil, and maybe do 8% for Total or Etana.
Okay.
Because that why am I doing 12%? I think corn oil is a name. It's a name in the retail space. It's not as encumbered as the other names.
Now speak to newbies before we go. You'll find out what to newbies. If they were to invest in this, how will you help them structure their portfolio? Just speak to newbies.
So I just mentioned how I would put up, but the important thing, especially for newbies, is even when I say I'm going to do 35% to Seplat, I'm not going to put everything at the same time.
Yeah.
I always believe in laddering in, cost averaging. You want to put in at different points. So for example, imagine if you had bought, put everything in Aradel when it was above 2,000. You'll be sitting on a very serious drawdown.
Yeah.
But if you've been doing the cost averaging, you realize that you will be sitting around maybe 1,600, which is not such a huge drawdown. So cost averaging is important. Also, always leave dry powder. I can't say it enough. Always, as a newbie, always leave dry powder. As a newbie, we are all excited to invest. Maybe you saw someone post on TikTok how they made insane amounts of money. You want to dive in head first. No. Let me tell you, in the market, opportunities are like buses. There's always another one coming.
Yes, I like that.
Yes, they're always like buses. And there's always another one coming. So you always want to leave a dry powder. There will always be market dislocation. For Aradel to come down from above 2,000 to 1,200, that was an insane dislocation. Imagine if you're looking, I know some people that were looking for Aradel to come down to even 1,900 so they can buy. There are some of them are even afraid to buy it at 1,200. So, or they have even expended their money, so they don't have enough to buy. We have limited resources, so it's important that you always leave some dry powder. No matter how the market pushes. Someone told me, Face Holco, I need to enter Face Holco because it is powering up. I said, leave dry powder. You will realize why the dry powder. Or why don't you look at some other names that have not done? That have not picked yet. So that's what. So leave dry powder for the.
All right. Thank you very much for coming.
You're welcome.
It was nice having you. All right, that's our show for today. Please, everything we do here is for educational purpose. If you want to invest, you speak to your financial advisor or you do your research yourself. We are strictly doing educational content. All right, thank you very much for staying till this point. We've had a lot of conversation on people telling us they want to learn how to do their own analysis themselves, and we've actually denied it for some time, but because of the agreement we've had, on the 10th of August, 10th of this month, we'll be having our first training for those who want to learn how to trade or how to actually analyze the market themselves, how to do research, what to look out for, what to see, risk management, what to before you buy, and all those kind of things. So 10th of August, we'll be having our first training, and it will be a 1 week intensive training, another 3 months, should I say, something like an internship where we'll pay close attention to everything you will be doing. Now, if you want to participate, there's a link on our profile page. If you go there, that link takes you to our Telegram community where we can actually have further conversation from there. But 10th of August, the training will start and you can join from anywhere. Thank you for staying to this point. Do not forget to like, subscribe, put a notification bell on this channel because of the amazing content we bring. My name is Providence. I'll see you again.